Hey, everybody. It's Hal Grebe. I'm the founder and owner of Pearl Snap Consulting. I just wanted to reintroduce the video here. We recorded this earlier, Jason and I, and the audio wasn't that great. As I mentioned on LinkedIn, we had some audio issues. We fixed them. This is the new introduction. So we're just so thankful that you're watching. We're excited about you viewing it. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about what he did. He's the one who salvaged it. I'm very thankful for his technical prowess. Not only you're going to see that today in this video, but you're going to hear a lot about it when we talk about Preppr and conventional AI versus the Preppr.ai. So Jason, really happy that you were here and appreciate you and all of your work today and previous week, this week.
Right. It's not a problem, Hal. It was such a great conversation that we had that it was worth what efforts it needed to be undertaken to bring it back. So one thing, if anybody ever has an echoey type audio, I highly recommend check out riverside.fm. It's got a 7-day professional free trial, and the audio tools are absolutely amazing. Hal and I had such a great in-depth conversation about Preppr, about exercises, about exercise design from all types of perspectives, from an emergency management perspective, from an ITDR, business continuity, and things like that, that I wanted to find a way to salvage it so it's palatable to your ears. So just to set the tone, there are some parts that aren't great. It's a long conversation. Hopefully the chapter markings come through, but feel free to scrub through the audio. There's a lot of great takeaways on here. And I'm so fortunate to have spent that time with Hal and get to know him better about his work, his life, and family and things like that. And really looking forward to continuing this conversation in the future. So Hal, I'll bring it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks again. And thanks for watching, and leave a comment or contact either of us if there's something you want us to dive deeper in. If there's a feature that you just need more clarification or understanding in, let us know. We're here to help you understand how Preppr can help you in your public safety, business continuity, or emergency management needs. We really love the tool, or else we wouldn't be so excited and so committed to making sure that the video here today meets your support and help. So anyway, let us know what you think. We'll be excited to bring more better offerings and videos in the future. Thanks again for watching, and we really do appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the video. You may or may not know, I do have a background in AI, mainly around business resilience, business continuity, and tabletop exercises. I'm a roll your own kind of guy, but also I've started to see the light of an all-in-one solution like Preppr. So Hal and I are looking forward to sharing our experiences with this. And Hal, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first, what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and share our screens. We're going to be talking back and forth. So we'll try to be paying attention to you watching on the camera, but this is pretty informal. We're excited about just meeting each other. This is the first time we've met in person. So we met literally 2 days ago on a webinar call. We found out we live just 30 minutes away, and here we are invited to my house. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I've already logged into Preppr. So what we'll do real quick is I'm going to give you just the lay of the land, show you some of the highlights, and then I'm going to turn it over. And he's going to walk us through it, and he's going to help identify what is normal AI you'd see on Gemini or ChatGPT or stuff like that, and then what's the stuff that makes Preppr. And so that's what I'm excited about seeing. And then I'll kind of nerd out on the emergency management side. I am, if you don't know who I am, I'm a master exercise practitioner. I have made a lot of exercises. I'm a big emergency management nerd, and when I saw Preppr a year or so ago, before what you see today is even here, I was super amped. This is like a power tool for the hand tools that we use in HC. So first and foremost, you log in. Like most usual components, you can see that you've got your profile settings here, and on the left is your kind of main menu dashboard. You've got your dashboard on the side that talks about what you've uploaded, if you're going to start any exercise or upload a document. Design exercise walks you through those HCEP design processes for exercises. We'll talk about that. You can manage your exercises that you've built out, resume them if you came to a stopping point, your documents, something called Ask Prepper. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, it's basically some of the shortcuts built into Preppr to help you, the emergency management or public safety personnel, get in there and do some quick document scrubbing against CPG 101 or lifelines and things. And again, we'll talk more in detail on that. Gather intelligence, which is a really cool thing we'll talk about. And then the bottom left, what I like as you're watching this, and that might be the first question to talk through a little bit, is you'll see I'm in a team account, and there's individual accounts and there's team accounts. But we have this thing called credits, and you can see I've already used the bank of credits up to 2,807 credits. So the way credits work from the Luddite like me, the ignorant or new to AI person, it's kind of carrying a bucket in a conversation with AI. As you have that conversation, the buckets get heavier and heavier, and the cost of credits goes up a little higher as you're having that conversation, as you're asking AI to do different things. You're loading more weight to the bucket, and AI has to carry it a little bit farther with a little bit more work or effort. And that's kind of how credits work. It's there. There's not a one for one credit equals this or that. That's just not how AI works. So that's there to just help guide. Some exercises that you go really big into design on will use more credits than others. Some things that you ask Preppr will use less than other things. So again, we just kind of point that out, not to confuse you, but just that's the world of AI. That's how AI outside of Preppr works. And we just put that there as a gauge, kind of like a fuel gauge. You drive your car faster, it's going to go down faster. You drive your car slower, more efficiently, it's going to use less fuel. So with that, that's kind of the quick overview of the tool. Some of the core features I'm going to turn over now and just let Jason get in there and start talking about what he sees, and I'm going to kind of be here to guide him through it.
Thank you so much, Hal. I'm going to go ahead and share out my screen here. So if you guys see things blip, it's because I'm doing stuff here. Another way that I look at the credits here in Preppr is, for those who are AI savvy, think of it as input tokens versus output tokens. Now, whether that's truly how Preppr leverages this, I'm not sure, but I know they have it well documented on their site, which I would encourage you to head over to Preppr.ai, check things out, kind of poke at the tires. There's also a free trial. It's hard to turn down free. Seeing and doing is believing. So please head on over to Preppr. That's Preppr.ai. Check out the free trial, nose around the website, look at the SOC 2 and all these security things. All these make this platform a robust all-in-one type solution. But again, I think of those credits as input tokens and output tokens. All of our words have value, they have weight. So as you may get wordy, i.e. me, you might burn some more tokens. And as AI, we're asking it to do things like research, the open source intelligence, maybe it's referencing our documents, maybe it's real-time news type article searches. Those are going to use up more of those tokens. So the more complex exercise you might have with a lot of data might cost you additional tokens. So far with my experience into Preppr, you can see I've burned about 7,000 tokens so far. I'm doing really complex exercises in here that are taking anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 tokens. Now, is that normal? I don't know. It seems to be normal for me, and that is absolutely okay. Again, there's a free trial. You get 4,000 credits out of it. Go for it. See how it works for you. But nonetheless, here we have the Preppr screen up here. As Hal had talked about the dashboard and the free trial. Here we can see down on the bottom left is, you're not seeing my screen. Uh-oh. This is bad news here. I'm going to stop the share again, and I'm going to try it one more time. Oh, my goodness. Hold on, everyone. This is my first day here. All right, everyone. So as you can see, hopefully, on my screen is I have the free trial of Preppr up on here, which, by the way, if you haven't already, you really need to head over to Preppr, that's Preppr.ai, and that'll bring you to the Preppr website, which hopefully you can see on here. And there's something really important that you need to do. And you have a choice here to choose your own adventure. So either you can go grab a free trial and lean into Preppr yourself. Justin has been nice enough to extend about 4,000 credits to the free trial. So it's enough to make a couple of exercises depending on the complexity, or even better, you've got this button over here called Book a Demo, where you can get some FaceTime, maybe with Hale, maybe with Justin. Who knows? Only one way to find out. Go book that demo, see who's going to show up to help guide you through this one cool platform. Also, the other thing, it needs to be said, there's this top right button called Trust Center. This is what separates, one of the many things that separates Preppr from like Roll Your Own. So think about it, if you're logging into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, which, by the way, everyone, Claude just announced, and I saw it today when I logged into my account, they're doing data retention for 5 years. And if you don't turn it off, they're going to train their model on the conversation. So everyone, be careful if you're using Claude. Go in there, make sure it's configured to meet your own risk appetite or your organization's risk appetite. Preppr doesn't do that, so you got a separation right here. Preppr.ai Trust Center here tells you everything that you want to know and that you need to know. Most importantly, it's SOC 2 Type 1, which, as you see, for 2025, great job, Preppr crew. I know that was not an easy lift, but also it has the different resources, controls, sub-processors, and all those FAQs to hopefully put your risk appetite in check, and to know that Preppr has done everything right to ensure that your sensitive data, especially your organizations, is protected and trusted and doesn't become the new attack vector out there. Man, that's a lot. So nonetheless, and this is one of the things that differentiates Preppr from Roll Your Own. I'm a Roll Your Own guy, by the way. So, but I'm slowly becoming a firm believer in this all-in-one. And there's multiple reasons why. First, Roll Your Own, got to be AI savvy. You have to understand how to interact, how to prompt contextually with AI. And if you're including sensitive organizational documents, does that necessarily meet the risk appetite and controls your organization has? And how are you doing that open source intelligence gathering too? That isn't naturally baked in to OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google. Those are things you're going to have to do in addition to provide that context to it. It gets really complex really quick. And unless you're some sort of techno geek AI nerd, i.e. me, it can be challenging. And even for me, it's still challenging. It's very overwhelming. And this is what helps me look to Preppr as an all-in-one solution, and a solution that I would recommend to you. So as you log in, you're presented with this dashboard. Keep in mind, I've already done stuff in here, so yours may look different from mine, but nonetheless, you have your exercises over here down in the recent exercises areas. I currently work in the healthcare field, so I'm ITDR focused. I am not an emergency manager. In this, I'm putting on my ITDR. Yeah, that's Hal. Hal's our EM here, giving great representation to that discipline. For me, I'm going to represent business continuity and ITDR. Those are types of things that I typically focus on in my role, so my exercises look and feel a little bit different.
And could you explain? I don't even know what ITDR is.
ITDR. Like what we're trying to do now. So IT, internet, information technology, internet technology, whatever you want to call it, disaster recovery. And it's not that type of disaster recovery that you would think under emergency management. Again, language matters here, and how we interpret matters too, which also Preppr is an amazing interpreter. It can talk EM speak, DR speak, BC speak, all those wonderful things, and it keeps things straight, unlike myself. So when I talk about ITDR, I'm talking specifically about technology. I'm talking about data centers. I'm talking about that technology that supports things that we try to achieve in our businesses day to day. Think of payroll. Payroll requires technology, and who doesn't like a paycheck? So when I go to organizations and I think about ITDR, I may think of, how do I protect payroll? As I look at that as the most successful and best managed employee retention program any organization runs. So if you want that payroll to keep rolling during dire times, we want to protect those processes to make sure the technology is resilient or can recover within an expected time frame. And if we have to pivot from, that direct deposit that I always love because I get it early, thank you bank, where you may have to pivot to more of a manual offline process like the paper check. Cringe. But nonetheless, here we are. So that's when I'm thinking about ITDR. I'm thinking about the technology systems and processes that support businesses in how they use that. So technology inevitably fails. I create contingency strategies to help stand that back up. Anyways, wow, that's long-winded, and that is okay. So in thinking here, I'm creating some ITDR type exercises in healthcare. And if we think about our attack landscape, ransomware is one of those big things. It's the same with financial services too. It's one of those nightmare scenarios where you come in and you get that lock screen and things like that. And I like to create exercises around that because that's our most likely impact. But nonetheless, before we get into exercise design, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to show you some of the neat things that I like about Preppr that separates it from Rule Your Own. First and foremost, it's this personalized Preppr down here. Once you sign in for your free trial, or even better, once you've converted into a paid client, always personalize Preppr. This is one of the secret sauces. One, you get to set your language preferences. I'm an English native speaker, albeit I do it poorly, but I get to set that type of language preference, as well as organizational and regional focuses. This is the secret sauce. So in here, I'm giving Preppr the context of a healthcare type institution, specifically a cancer center. If you go on my LinkedIn, you'll know which one I'm talking about. Also, its location in the United States. This one happens to be in glorious New York City. Hooray. And that is the primary focus. So I gave it some context around that organizational and regional focus, as well as those threats and hazards. I call those things that keep my leadership up at night. It's the things that they're always talking about. And in this particular institution, it could be cyber attacks, natural disasters like earthquakes, flooding, heat, drought, those things that we see in the news almost every day. Craziness, as well as things like infrastructure challenges like overloaded power grid, cell infrastructure disruption, overload, internet outages, fuel shortages, you name the impact du jour, you can put it in here. So you can add that context around those type of threats and hazards and concerns for your business, as well as what capabilities and frameworks do you align to. For example, in this particular instance, this is a COBIT alignment. I hear groans off in the distance. Yeah, it's COBIT, such is life. I don't get to make that choice. But it could be ISO, it could be NIST, it could be other type of emergency management type standards, which I'm not necessarily familiar with. But I could talk to you all day long about ISO and COBIT and NIST and FFIE CIT handbook and NCUA and all these other things. But emergency management for me is a blind spot. But nonetheless, you can put that capability and framework in here. Again, we're giving Preppr context about your institution or maybe you. And then we have our goals and objectives.
So let me interrupt because
please do.
This is, you're showing something that's a difference, but which is cool. But why? Like, what is this context between Preppr having the ability for you to personalize it? Like, what does that mean to AI? Like, I like it's some omniscient thing, but like, yeah, right. What does that matter a little bit?
And that is a great question, and thank you so much for asking that, Hal. So the idea of personalization, if we don't personalize it, we get generalizations, high-level things. Think of it like a 10,000-foot view on a map. When I want 1 centimeter, so the more context that I can give Preppr, the more likely it is to create a realistic, reasonable scenario for my institution. So if I can tell it about its opportunities and challenges and capabilities and frameworks and goals and objectives and who my stakeholders are and give it more and more context, it can nuance more specific detail about my organization. So you can get as granular as you want in this personalization or as high level. This helps guide Preppr serving you the right information and data at the right time. So it pays to invest in the personalized Preppr.
So this would be stuff that never changes, right? So like if I'm like coming from the emergency management side, I talk when I teach kind of young EMs, I talk a lot about knowing your governance. Are you a home rule jurisdiction? Are you a Dillon's Law kind of thing? Like, are you a special district or are you an NGO? Whatever your governance is, when you put that as a parameter, you don't have to, when you have the conversation with Preppr, you don't have to restate these things. So whatever you don't want to have to restate to AI, that's what you would want to put in here.
Correct.
Okay.
Those are those things that are going to hold for a long time. It's like the Post-it note that I have on this truck that I'm rebuilding. don't start the engine without putting oil in it first. So think of it as that reminder that will give context to Preppr as you go in and create a litany of exercises in different scopes. This helps guide the SaaS to provide you with better results. So it's really important to take your time and invest the time into the personalized Preppr so you get more of that tailored experience.
And of course, if it was prompting me, maybe, or if prompting's maybe not the right word, but if I was having the conversation with Preppr, which we'll show here in a little bit, and if it's asking me maybe the same questions, I can always go back in here, update that. So then the parameters, I can tighten those parameters and maybe help with AI credits or whatever. Justin's probably watching this. I wish I was there right now.
That's all right. And that's also the opportunity, Justin. We'd love to have you. Where are you, buddy? Here we are.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, there's also some parts of Preppr that allow us to update the personalized Preppr without having to be in personalized Preppr. And we'll get into that in a minute or two because it's pretty cool. So we have these goals and objectives as well as participants. So for me, one of my overarching goals, I call it Jason's blue plate special, is to enable critical thinking and decision making under pressure when they're under duress. Because for me, that's one of the most important things is critical thinking and decision making as well as communication. All those tie together. If we're not communicating during an incident, what are we doing? What we're doing is extending it, and that's not okay. So we also have objectives, to identify organizational gaps that impacts its ability to succeed under challenging circumstances. Again, you can nuance this however you want. This is me just going in and trying to see how I can trip up Preppr a little bit. How does this personalized Preppr, inform my outputs a little bit better? And resource needs and constraints. Who doesn't have budget constraints these days? Labor costs, depth of your labor, supply chain disruption, hybrid workforce, so on and so forth, as well as lessons learned and events that you could put in. So think of maybe incidents and with root cause analysis that could be in, or any hot wash or after action type reports that you could put into here. Again, this stuff all helps Preppr help you. So the more you fill out personalized Preppr, the better your experience is going to be, as well as different extracts and findings. And you can see there's tooltips in here of things that you can look for, or you can just try crashing things in, see what happens, as well as types of use. For me, I'm thinking with Preppr, I'm looking at healthcare, business resilience, ITDR, crisis management, business continuity, emergency management, IT incident management. That's a whole lot of management. And then we have the section of intelligence finding, which I'll show you where to get that updated in here and ask Preppr. And of course, the most important thing, people, if you don't click on save, it's not going to save.
That's awesome.
So, it's like fix where it didn't happen, save, or you get to do it all over again. So something to keep in mind.
Sorry to interrupt. And I think it's really important because to call this out for whomever might be watching is, you just went through a lot of stuff. I've been in Preppr maybe a week or two. So how long have you, because you have more advanced knowledge than I feel like I have at this point. And here I am supposed to be representing Preppr to the emergency man. How long have you even been in this? Could you qualify?
I've been in Preppr for 1 week.
1 week. Now, that's awesome. And I think there's a lot of that AI background that you had that's showing through to this.
And I'm a technology guy. Okay. In my previous career, I've been technology support, helping people use and abuse solutions like this. So for me, this is very natural. It's just, sorry, Justin, it's another SaaS, as in, and it's not just another SaaS, as in, Preppr is very unique, but when you think about navigating software, navigating SaaS services, it's very similar. It has a very comfortable feel to it, like I've been using this for a long time without having been using it for a long time. I was able to hit the ground and running and get familiar with Preppr within my first couple of hours.
Yeah, that's good.
Which isn't a huge thing about Preppr. It's easy to use. You don't need an advanced degree. You don't need another certification. What you need is curiosity and the Preppr platform, and you can do amazing things. So something to think about, ease of use. When you go to roll your own, it doesn't play out the same. You need to be very confident with your systems, with your conversational and contextual type prompts, and how you're aggregating data. Again, Preppr makes this so much more easy And part of what separates it from rule your own is this gather intelligence portion. This is where it's using uh, intelligence connections with news items, where you can give it a high level prompt to say major IT outage disruption for a major hospital healthcare institution. Or the one above it is, I've only done two, is ransomware event on FinTech Credit Union Service Organization, also known as Akuzo. Those were two things that I was curious about. And within a couple of minutes, it went out, did its research with its tailored, customized, protected. Remember that threat assessment in that security section? All this is protected. It's not putting out your sensitive information out onto the internet for bad actors to use and abuse. So everything is very controlled and well protected on the Preppr platform, hence how it was able to achieve a SOC 2 in such a short amount of time. So kudos again to the Preppr group on that security side of things. But nonetheless, it's using that open source intelligence as well as the different aggregates it has for news sources, for vetting news sources, truthiness in news sources, because remember, just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true. So we have to be very careful with the data that we're vetting here. And this helps separate it from things like ChatGPT or Claude. When you tell it to do deep research, you don't control where it goes on the internet. And you don't control what data might be shared in the open on the internet. Preppr does all that under the hood. So it takes that risk, it reduces that risk. It doesn't make it zero. Nobody can make risk zero, but it reduces it greatly to fit within that risk appetite of you and your organization. So again, it used these reports in here that it created around, ransomware for a credit union service organization or major IT disruption for a healthcare institution and whatnot. And it gives you all this factual data, links to actual news articles. So, again, you can validate that it's truthful, and verify those news sources, share that out with your leadership. I always like sharing out those hard news items with leadership, to help them invest a little bit more into why we do exercises. But here, it creates this very detailed news summary. And down here, we have this thing called Save to Custom Instructions. Where does that go?
Well, and before we go here, like one of the things, like from the emergency management perspective, I like to talk about this part is one of the things we get asked a lot is what's going on and why, and how do we get reports to our executives and electeds. And in my cursory use of AI, a lot of the times it's bullet points. It is formatted with like emojis or the pictures, and you're like, what is, I can't send this to a commissioner. I can't. And like you said, some of it's science fiction, some of it's make believe. It's not curated to the accuracy that I would need quickly. And a lot of these things come on the fly. And one of the things I wanted to call out with the gather intelligence is it's in paragraph form. It's in a format that most of today's executives and electeds want to be briefed. Or if you're going to verbally brief somebody, you could talk to this and not just have a bullet flow. And so I think it's really important to talk about that narrative format, and then also have the citing of sources, because a lot of our more formal products and artifacts within, I would assume continuity community too, but emergency management is when we're briefing or sending an email with an attachment. That's how people want to receive this. They're not, yes, they want it to be, I mean, everyone says, yeah, give it to me in bullet points, but there's a balance to that. And what I really like about the gather intelligence is I know that it already has me in mind when it's doing the search. And when it's presenting and analyzing, there's been a lot of work on the back end to suss out the fluff or the things that are not going to be real in a briefing that needs to be real and need to be given to those decision makers for a lot of important things, so they can make decisions that may impact them. And again, like this could be something that's happening states away or next door to you. You can quickly gather this intelligence. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because we all have news feeds, we all have RSS things, but then it's like, gosh, I want I love that paragraph here. And then, I mean, those two sentences there. And that takes a lot of time when you're developing these sit reps or situation briefings. And this is like, what a time saver in it doing some of the analyzing faster than I could ever do it. Again, like I hearken AI a lot to like a power tool versus a hand tool. Like, yes, I can do this by hand. I have the expertise and I can do this quickly, but man, to have that power tool when I get asked at a moment's notice is super great. So I just wanted to just talk about even that format. I know it looks long. No one likes to read anymore, but it is important to discern that from some of the AIs to what Preppr does.
Right. And what great call outs, Hal. And thank you so much for raising those up, which gave me an aha moment of myself around this. So in thinking about AI and roll your own, again, we don't know if it's truthy. We don't know its worthiness. We don't know what data sources it used. Granted, I know you can tell AI to disclose those sources, but I don't know about you, but it also can make those sources up. Here, what we have in Preppr in this intelligence gathering is it lists out all the sources with links to them. So it calls out the institution that provided that news as well as the link to it. And sometimes there's multiple sources for that because it may be reported by multiple news organizations. So you can go validate that all really quickly. And as Hal said, this is professional. It's not emojied. It's not weird formatting. It's not word salad theater. It's not just more AI slop, which, if you're not familiar with AI slop, definitely go Google it because we see it every day. If you've ever seen those Yeti feeds that you doom scroll through TikTok or Facebook where, they're cramming down some beers and, investing in space dust and all those things, that's AI slop. It doesn't add any value, but yet it's absolutely entertaining. This isn't that. This is a tool. And the important thing to remember about this, yes, it's AI, but it's not artificial intelligence. This is augmented intelligence. So it's the combination of the power of artificial intelligence as that tool of enablement and that efficiency where it can go scrape the web and gather all this intelligence and create these beautiful cited type of reports. But it's our human experience, our intuition, our gut feeling, our messiness, our imperfections that really blended with artificial intelligence make this a force multiplier. Because again, we're not just throwing it over the fence into a black box and then, hey, we get this word salad theater that we have to go try to make sense of in action. But instead, we have all this context that we have that we've personalized with Preppr. And as we get into exercise design, which I know we're throwing a lot at you, we might hit pause and do that later and maybe break this up into a little bit more palatable things. But nonetheless, you're using that human intuition, your experience, that business knowledge and acumen paired with AI to create a meaningful, impactful, and actionable exercise, whether it be tabletop, physical, whatever you may use it for. This is a force multiplier.
Well, could we even like just show it? I know we're talking about it, and everyone's like, "Can you just give me an example? Like, could you just?" I mean, it could be as simple as like I know that there was the active school shooting, right? And like
Right.
I can guarantee you, I've worked in higher ed for a long, long time. You worked K through 12.
Yep.
Right now, there's executives asking their public safety representatives, "Hey, tell me everything that's going on," because they're watching all the news feeds. Their family and friends are like, "Hey, have you seen this?" So you could do that with this, right? Because this is all open
Right.
source. Like this is just like you would say, "Can you give me an intelligence briefing?" Or like, like what would that look like here?
Right. And with that, let's do that. So
Yeah.
we can go with active, and everyone, pardon my misspelling.
You're talking to a Texan.
I
It's
move
fine.
quick, but I'm just not accurate. So bear with me. And this is also the beauty of AI. It understands my imperfection. So, if we do an active school shooter scenario, active school shooter, K through 12, which, by the way, we're recording this the day after a significant school shooting happened in Minnesota. Now, keep in mind, AI itself isn't always trained onto the latest data. There's cutoffs. And depending on what solution you're using, that cutoff could be last year, maybe years before, or maybe a couple of months ago. So it may not always have the most awareness around current events. This is where Preppr and its open source intelligence, its news aggregation, and things like that allows it to help AI get current. So we can design impactful type of tabletops or exercises, or when we're doing our research here, this gathering intelligence, K through 12, private and public schools. We're just going to go very vague and high level that way. And I'm going to just hit enter. So active shooter, K-12, private and public schools.
And so a lot of what I understand this to be doing is so what makes Preppr? And please correct me if I'm wrong. So to make you spit your water out there. But so the dev team behind the scenes, the human intelligence has programmed Preppr to again weed out the make believe, the fairy tale, the science fiction, and focus it on actionable, real sites that matter to us, the end users within public safety and emergency management, continuity, operations type stuff. It has all of that pre-baked, so we're not having to, again, like while AI in general is a time saver, we're not having to figure out how to talk to Gemini versus Claude versus Chat GPT to get to what we're trying to say. Because sometimes I've noticed it makes up stuff. And you're like, hey, where'd you get those numbers? You're right. I made those up. It's actually, here's the real data. And so a lot of what you see happening here, which is done now, is thinking through those things, making sure that it understands you, the audience, you, the public safety emergency manager, and now I'm going to give you a realistic threat assessment. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to talk about some of that.
And part of that secret sauce that makes Preppr different from the idea of roll your own. So with Preppr, there's a bunch of expertise behind the team that creates system prompts and other types of prompts that you'll never see, which is great because it makes it easier and makes us look a lot better, that are going and curating the knowledge, rating the knowledge, truthing out the knowledge, creating those factual citations and validating all this information. This is all happening under the hood behind the scenes, which if you're going to ChatGPT to roll your own exercise, you are the validation method. Because one thing to think about with AI, it's a bold-faced liar. It will set you up to fail as soon as you let it. So you have to trust your intuition, your gut feeling. And I would say that to all AI. And I would even say, read what's in Preppr. Does it make sense to you? Because just like all things, Preppr might not be perfect. But I'll tell you this, it's a lot more perfect than what ChatGPT, what Claude, what Gemini, what Llama, what Grok, all those other type of LLMs produce as your own. This is validated, vetted data that has a lot of expertise behind it, so we get the repeatability on it. Now, you figure that out with roll your own, try to do that 1x, 2x, 10x, 20x, year over year over year. It's really hard when you're rolling your own to get that repeatability unless you are like a prompt master. So pivoting back over into Preppr, we have this gather intelligence. I've talked long enough to allow it to do its thing, which you can see it's also pretty darn quick.
Yeah, it's pretty fast. So we talked and it's like, are you going to read this or not?
Right. Come on, dude. I want to go build an exercise.
Yeah.
So active shooter, K-12, private and public schools. Here we see the thinking of AI here, bubbling up, coming out of a system prompt saying, hey, I'm going to go to this open source intelligence and these are the criteria. Here's the things that I need to. You see those 4 things. I should start with Ask News, which, by the way, if you haven't gone and researched out what Ask News is, hit pause, go check it out, consider subscribing. Another amazing small company, Colorado founder who's now an expat living in France. Amazing. But Ask News is the way to get to truthful and accurate news sources. And there's a partnership between Preppr and Ask News. So this is part of the many types of feeds for that open source type of intelligence. And Ask News is pretty darn amazing. So if you haven't checked it out, go do so.
Not a paid endorsement or anything like that, right? Like,
no, I'm not getting paid by anyone.
Yeah,
I'm here on my own free will,
I was like, man, you're like I love everything you're saying, but I just wanted to clarify even that moment because, like, yeah, it's exciting and we're genuinely excited by this. But I wanted to say, like, I am contracted by Preppr, to be clear. Like, I get it. I'm on my own podcast though because this is above and beyond, quite frankly. Like, I just wanted to. I'm being paid to learn how to use Preppr better, and that's literally what we're trying to do right now is learn this. And so when I can represent emergency management, that's why we're here. So, but thank you. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So,
Go check out Ask News. It's absolutely an amazing service. I'm so glad to see a partnership between Ask News and Preppr. It really helps with that news truthiness, which is a critical component of this platform. So here we can see it's asking Ask News, and it's going through. It's doing a news search, thinking. You can click on all these, and you can kind of see what's going in under the hood here if you want to geek out, which, by all means, feel free to geek
so
out.
it's not magic, right? Like, this is it, like Preppr showing you. This is one thing I thought was cool because, again, I don't know much about AI, and this is like showing you its logic. Because I think that's really, really, being an emergency manager, we're wired for why. Root cause analysis. I mean, that's a thread we go to everything. Why is this? And that's really a great call out. Thank you for showing that because there's nothing magic here. It's showing you the logic, the why it came to this, so you can understand. Because guess what happens, right? If you just brief this out from something else and then you're elected's like, how did you come to this? How did you go to this logic? Well, this is giving you the logic on where it came from. And that, again, I'm a why guy. So that's
right. And I come from regulated environments. Either we documented it or it never happened.
Yep.
Try telling that to an auditor saying, I did this, promise, just take my word for it. Doesn't work out well. That's how you get to findings, and then you got some explaining to do. But here, and we look at some of the thinking, some key statistics and trends. Good Lord, that's a big word for me. Looking at 2025, and keep in mind, guys, we're 8 months into 2025, and there's already been 44 school shootings. And it gives us the source over here, if we want to click on this, to bring that up. Hey, look, it's a real news article. Please be a real news article. It is a real news article. Anyways, it's just taking some time to get there. Here it is. The U.S. just saw its 44th school shooting. Hey, and look at the published date. Today.
It's today.
That doesn't happen in ChatGPT. That does not happen in Claude. You have to turn on deep research, and you hope that it finds this. You hope it didn't make this up. You hope it didn't synthesize the link. Here, this is getting news from today. And look at that Eastern timestamp on there. That was noon Mountain Time. By the way, we're in Mountain Time, in case you didn't know. Anyways, so it's
that's cool.
A factual source there. 44 school shootings in 2025.
Wow.
That says a lot about us.
Yeah.
In 2024, we had 83 in total. Guys, we got 4 months left. I have this bad feeling we're going to break this based on news articles. Anyways, this is not a conversation about this heavy topic.
Yeah.
It's the idea is it's showing its thinking. This is the audit trail, so you can help build confidence and understand how it got to the words that it created, the decisions that it had, the documentation that's providing. And look at this. We get this executive summary. I'm not going to read this to you, though. If you want to reach out to me or Hal, we'd be more than happy to share this with you.
Or pause.
Right.
That's right
or
there.
Even better yet, hit pause, go sign up for the free trial of Preppr, and you go do it. I encourage you to do so. See the power that Preppr can produce for you. And then hit pause again. Now go into ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you want. Try to get that same report. Let me know how that works out for you. There's a big difference.
All right. And this is the time to shameless plug real quick for you. One of the things Jason is going to do, and this is the precursor to that, is us just getting into Preppr and what's what in the tool. Later, I don't know when, but at some point later, he is going to do a sort of showdown.
Yeah, both Justin and I we're going to hop on a similar type of thing. Yeah. He's going to go, we're going to use the same type of data sources. So we're going to create similar type exercises. Not quite sure what that looks like yet. Still working out through that. We could trip each other up. Justin could go down the EM road. I could go down the IT road, and boy, we'll both be really confused.
And I might just be there to watch and poke at both.
Right.
You don't know.
He'll be cheering us on.
Yeah. I'll
come on,
wave
guys.
the flag.
Don't fail.
but yeah, but keep on the lookout of that as that comes up. We'll share that on the Pearl Snap stuff. We'll share that on the Preppr stuff.
Yep.
And point to Jason so you can find him and where that
Yeah,
is.
we'll be sharing this out on LinkedIn or whatever channels that makes sense. It could be YouTube, it could be LinkedIn, it could be maybe a plane flying overhaul banner. You never know. So just keep in tune to your social media feeds, and we look forward to sharing that showdown with you. I'm curious to see how that all goes.
Well, let's go to exercises now. I think
Right.
I think seeing this we'll kind of get a good idea, but I do want to get, because all of this, and we'll talk. Ask we got some ground to cover. So
Right.
design exercises. So even when you do that gather intelligence, the other component that I think is really important, because you're in this walled garden of Preppr.ai, as you do the gather intelligence, it is going to know when you are in design exercise that that's some of the information it can now pull from. So as you're gathering intelligence and you want to pivot to, first your executive or elected says, hey, go find and give me a briefing on insert disaster. Now they're going to say, what's usually the follow up? Can we do a tabletop? Or, hey, let's have a little exercise on that in 2 days. And you're like, usually in my in my past lives as a director, a county director, I had to learn the tactful art of saying no. And not always easy, but we know, again, being an HC purist, it's a lot to design a tabletop. It is something that is important. We don't just throw a scenario out and say react. And some people like to do that, but we're not all cowboys. We have to document what we're doing because you can't mend what you can't measure. And so if we don't have a programmatic approach to doing this, then what are we even doing as professionals? We are just knife handing and cowboying around. And I, for one, love being a cowboy, but even cowboys have a process and a way of doing things. So I say all that to say, in design exercises, this is where you can really start to make and add a little bit of power to your process. If you click on design exercise, it's going to look at your gather intelligence, your documents, everything you had. And this is almost like your consultant to create a tabletop. And actually, we probably should take a step back. So before you can see the methodology here, process, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step process there. But the output of this, I think, is really important. I'm a super nerd. Again, I understand, know thyself. It will give you, at the end of this process, this workflow within Preppr, it is going to output a first draft of your SITMAN. And from that SITMAN, you can then add your logos, edit it, make it, put your branding, because Preppr doesn't know your brand. It doesn't know your logos, things like that. So what this iteration of that's probably not the right word. The people like sound iteration. What this feature of this tool here of design is to talk you through what you want, and it will do the building for you. So after we go through this process, which we don't really have time to go through the whole thing today, maybe that's again another day. It walks you through this and it asks you questions like a consultant would to then tease out that H-sheet methodology. And so this is really intended for you to sit down with your stakeholders, put this up on the wall on your monitor, and talk through an exercise, and then it does the work for you. And I'm nerdy enough to where when I would have meetings for planning meetings of either exercise design or large and major documents like a comprehensive emergency operations plan or a very important SOP, I would actually count the staff members in the meeting, and I would figure out the titles. Like most everyone here is assistant director, and then I would go and figure out what the average salary of everybody in the room was, and then I would write on the board, this meeting costs, and it's not inexpensive. Staff time or taxpayer dollars. This is all real money, right? And so it would be a couple $1,000s in certain meetings, depending on how large the meeting. It would be a couple $1,000s of staff time for one meeting. And I would put that on the board and say, did we earn this today? Like with the last 10 or 15 minutes, I would say, did we earn this today? And if people felt we didn't earn it, we'd spend those last 10 or 15 minutes earning it to make sure we had action items, we had accountability, we knew next steps. and we would move the ball forward. We wouldn't just meet to meet. I hate meetings to meet. So I say all that to say that that staff time is real money, and this saves you that time. It saves you the headaches of trying to get all these people together. You can bring them together at once. It's walking you through those questions. And like I said, adding a power tool to your tool set. So anyway, I wanted to say that real quick.
Oh, what a
Why this
great
is
call out,
important.
though. And I absolutely love that. I think I'm going to steal that and do that hourly burn rate on exercises just to remind the business that this is an investment and we need to get a return on said investment. Speaking of that return on said investment, so once you move from the idea of a demo trial with Preppr, and let's say you start investing in it, you've onboarded this in your organization. Okay, you've done the personalization, you've done the gather intelligence. Super cool. But even before you do that, I know we're getting so close. We're getting closer to exercises. Things don't happen that quick because we need to give context to Preppr. Preppr doesn't know you. It doesn't know your organization. So we use that personalized Preppr to give it some context around your organization and what you're looking for. We use gather intelligence to get that situational scenario type of intelligence that can help inform things. And another way to tailor it towards your organization are documents. And now you can see in here, I have some documents that I've uploaded. And these are organizational policies, could be controls, it could be regulatory controls. Like I've got COVID in here. Again, apologize to everyone who has to align to that. NIST 800-34, which if you're familiar with NIST in 834, you'll know that's for like around continuity. And then good old ISO 22301, which is your ISO business continuity standard. And again, you can load the documents that matter to you. So again, I put a couple of these into Preppr. Here we can go ask Preppr, and using AI and augmented intelligence, we can ask questions about that document to Preppr. Pretty cool. So you can do that with all those. You can have that engagement there.
Well, let's go back to Ask Preppr real quick because I did want to. This is some fun call outs. There's things called wrappers around AI, and I don't mean like the 1990s, Dr. Dre. There's my old aging myself rappers. So one of the things that Justin and I talked about when I first came on board was, what are some of the low lift things that emergency managers and like emergency managers need? And this is where Ask Preppr, you've got these three things on the top. Compare documents for discrepancies, evaluate a plan against CPG 101, and analyze community lifeline integration gaps. So these are some of the hot topics within emergency management. And so what Preppr has done is, again, using human intelligence, using my back and forth with Justin and myself talking and with the dev team, they're like, what is it about certain documents that you want to get more from? And so these top boxes are actually kind of pre-wrapped prompts that allow the user to not have to, again, spend the time going back and forth. So in a past life, I worked on a Department of Homeland Security science and technology project called the Community Lifeline Status System. Okay. Free plug. It's a free tool that's built on Azure that allows any agency, any government agency to use it. The problem or some of the friction that we had is there's not a lot of plans that align to lifelines. And there's a lot of plans that don't understand the indicators that bolt into this tool. And so what Justin built pretty quickly was this analyze community lifeline integration and gaps. So if you have a plan in your document, you click on that button and it will start to do a full analysis using the indicators from the Department of Homeland Security tool and start to analyze if it can tease out some of these concepts for the community lifelines, which again, using a car analogy, is just a simple way to communicate critical systems within governments, energy, wastewater, things like that. Those are like your dummy lights, like something's bad, pay attention to this. So anyway, that's one thing I wanted to call out while you're looking at the screen. What are these white boxes at the top? And so just a pretty cool way to have some out of the box wrappers. I don't know if I'm using the right term. I look to Jason right now to say, am I even saying that correctly? But those are what those Preppr actions are.
Yeah, and so this is one of those superpowers of Preppr. And again, thinking about the security that it has, the SOC 2, the protected environment, potentially uploading those community lifeline documents could be a big problem doing that into public AI. And here you have this protected environment that you can now conversationally interact and analyze these documents in a safe, secure environment. Again, you don't necessarily get that with the off-the-shelf versions of Copilot, of Claude, of Anthropic, or that is Claude, ChatGPT. There's so many of them these days. It's really easy to get confused. But this is the neat thing with Preppr does is it gives us security to work with sensitive type documents in a safe, secure environment. But
And that's what the SOC 2 means, right? For those non-IT people, SOC 2 is a compliance standard where you can, you're not going to put HIPAA type documents in here. You're not going to put patient health data, but you can put it's a more controlled, non-open window that AI can look into this, but it's not going to take it and push it out.
Right. We're not training models on this.
Yes.
This isn't going into a public data repository like, any integrations with Claude. It's not doing the 5-year data retention. This is through API integrations with proper data controls around those connections. So again, this is something that's different from working with those commercial off-the-shelf products. Now, if you're paying for Claude in your business and you're doing that business to business type transactions, there's additional controls you can potentially use, but that comes with a massive premium price. You could fund Preppr for a whole long time compared to maybe, having that integration with ChatGPT. So think about that as a potential benefit here. But again,
because Preppr uses all the different AIs at once, right? Like it's not like this is not like hyper-focused or built on ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthrop, whatever.
Correct. It's spread through a bunch of the different LLMs with those different security and data controls, which, depending on what the budgetary constraints are with your enterprise or your institution, you could potentially do some of those same things. But it's a heavy lift. It requires resources. It requires the technical staff. And here it is. You have this beautiful product that's already done for you that you can do your own security analysis on this. But let's remove risk and security from the conversation for a moment as we've uploaded now some documents in here. And we're finally into design exercises because I'm going to show you something that's really cool that I like so much that, it would cause me, and it's getting there, to shift from rule your own into a Preppr all-in-one type solution. I love the introduction setups and how we can interact with this, the objectives, modules, MSEL, confirm and finish. But this little thing here, this little toolbar, you click on this, you get some magic. Oh, docs. What documents do you want to use to inform this exercise we're doing? Oh, yeah, I'm going to align to COBIT. Oh, and I'm going to use this business continuity management. Not that this is necessarily the appropriate control for this, but hey, it just shows you can add these to the exercise, and now the exercise will use that in its design.
I thought you were saying COVID this whole time.
COVID?
Yeah.
I'll take COVID over COVID
okay,
any day, Oh, good Lord, COVID.
Yeah, sorry to go off topic.
No,
it's COVID.
No, and who knows? I might have slurred my words. It's a beautiful thing that I've inherited from my father. So thank you, Dad, for that. But here we are. We've now assigned these two particular documents to this exercise, which now the exercise and its logic will refer to those documents in helping design. And here we have this AI ability to nuance that conversation.
And if I may get on a little bit of soapbox, because this is a big deal to me too. Is in an exercise, what are we evaluating, right? We are evaluating not people, not tools. We are evaluating plans. The ideas, the aspirational goals have been written down by an agency, and this is the level of expectation we are to perform at. That is what we need to be building our exercises on. Scenarios are fun, but if it's not built upon the foundation of evaluating a plan, we're just playing make-believe. A little soapboxy, again, that's my MEP showing a bit, but this is a huge deal because I start everything when I start an exercise design, literally the first question is, what plans are we evaluating? Not what stuff, not what scenario. So I just wanted to this is awesome. And this is just, I love that we can do this. This is why I'm like, it's great.
Right. So in thinking about that and doing some translation from EM into business continuity here is you could take a business continuity plan. Now, give me a moment while I also get on a soapbox. Plans don't save your bacon during adversity. They never have. I don't know if they ever will. I don't know. All I know is, from my perspective in regulated environments using business continuity, plans are documentation of our capabilities, our capacity, and is evidence for our regulators, auditors, and leadership to show the value of what we're doing in our program. At the end of the day, education, training, and exercising is the most important thing we can do. My goal is to bake it into the lizard brain of my stakeholders. So when that bad thing happens, when adversity is triggered, we don't go, oh, shoot, now what? We just get up and we respond because we've baked it into our psyche and we know what to do. We are letting that lizard brain take over. So in here, as we attach documents here, it could be your business continuity plan. It could be your emergency preparedness plan. It could be a continuity of operations or continuity of government type plan. It could be so many different types of plans that we can exercise that plan to see if the data that we've collected in the said plan is actionable enough to allow us to support a thorough educational initiative and an exercise. So, and then we can also then compare it to standards. Because again, like Hal said, what gets measured gets done. If we're not measuring anything, what are we doing? We are doing entertainment, and exercises is part entertainment from my perspective.
So beautiful. Yes.
Because if we're not entertaining people, we're boring them. And if we're boring them, they're not going to pay attention to these critical things. And then come those dire times, well, all hell breaks loose. Anyway, so here we have these plans that we can attach to here. We have this governance type of framework, but under settings. Oh, the other magic secret sauce here that off-the-shelf AI isn't necessarily doing. Enable intelligence gathering. So if you read this here and you go down to this number, 80,000 open sources that this is referencing. Now, try to go do that with ChatGPT. Try to go do that with Claude. One, you don't get to select the 80,000 sources. Preppr did. Preppr vetted them. Preppr validated that those are the sources that it trusts. And there's 80,000 of them. Dang. Now, doing that.
These aren't just any sources, right? This is not like, it's not all just Yahoo News. But it could be, I think they like the Google, what is the Scholar?
Right.
It's like deeper than just your, like when it says open source, these are some peer-reviewed, published documents. Like these are really validated sources.
Right. This isn't just another PDF somebody threw up on the internet and calls it truthful. Yeah. These are validated, trustworthy sources. So you can turn that on and off. So you can use this intelligence gathering. And again, we're not training any models here. This is a one-way conversation. So it's gathering this to inform Preppr to allow us to build a robust exercise.
Because it sounds like I'd always want to keep this on, but like, why wouldn't I want to have this on maybe?
Well, it's in parentheses down below. Additional credits apply.
Oh, okay.
So depending on what your budget is for Preppr and how in depth and robust you want to do, maybe you're doing it. Gosh, I hate to say it, but we all do it at some point. A check the box compliance type exercise. And if we're going to check the box, do we really want to spend the extra credits?
Because really, you're just trying to get it to pull. You're trying to create an exercise. You turn this off. See if I understand this. Sorry. And I'm really experiencing this for the first time. Like I've never seen these things. I'm like, oh, I'm learning stuff. So if I know I have this plan, I really just want to focus on this document, these two documents. I just built them. I really want to just hyper focus on these documents. I deselect that. It's really just hyper focusing on that. It's not going to add additional content, valuable content, but this helps you by turning this off. You're hyper focusing and you're only allowing Preppr. I want to say Dr. Preppr. But you're only allowing Preppr to just really focus on the documents you give.
Right. So if you're attaching your documents to it and you turn off that enable intelligence, yes, you're focusing on what you are wanting Prepper to look at, to reference for, to build the exercise, referencing data. And if you don't enable intelligence gathering and you don't attach any documents, well, you get what Prepper's trained on. Think of those system prompts and the professionals at Prepper have done to give this that EMBCDR crisis type of expertise. So you would get that expertise. You don't have to attach anything to it. You do not have to enable intelligence. But I tell you, if you do, you're going to get one heck of an exercise out of this if you invest the time.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
So here we are, introduction and setup. And what's awesome with this, it's a conversational type of interaction. And you know what? You can use the microphone and you can dictate to Prepper if you want. There are some extra charges with that because it's the way things work. There is nothing free in life. So, if you want to talk instead, there's potential extra credit usage applies. Otherwise, you can go be keyboard warrior with your hands and have at it. So from here with the introduction setup, you can follow along on the screen here, and it's an iterative conversation. You could get into it a little bit, change your mind, and change the outcome of this. And I'm talking so much, Prepper is trying to be secure and log me out. So that's awesome, which, by the way, that is a feature, not a bug, where if you step away from your workstation and leave it unlocked, which you shouldn't do anyways, Prepper will at least lock you out and log you out. So not just any schmo can come by and start creating chaos in your system. So here you can see I've added documents. How would you like to incorporate these into your exercise design? I would like for you, which, by the way, when I interact with AI, it's like an old buddy. I use please, I use thank you, which, by the way, those cost credits. You don't have to be nice to AI. I just choose to do so, and I'm burning money because of it. I would like for you to create a one module, because sometimes we don't have you can define how many modules you want to do based on what your time constraints are. So you could have it do an in-depth 20 module type exercise, or sometimes I only get 15 minutes to go execute a tabletop.
Yeah.
So I may just choose one module and then make it concise. I create one module that is 15 minutes in duration. Oh, good Lord, I cannot spell today.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, I'm going to start there with giving some context. So I would like you to create one module, and it's going to ask, because I didn't tell it what type of exercise. What am I wanting to do with this exercise? Okay, currently we're focused on selecting and defining core capabilities. Okay, so Prepper's helping me help it. Would you like to review or modify custom instructions before we proceed? I'm like, you know what? I would like to add that this is about succession planning. So if you only have 15 minutes to do a tabletop, we need to be real about scope here, and we can't boil the ocean, lack of a better word. Sometimes, part of Jason's blue plate specials with exercises, when I don't have a lot of context, is I focus on succession planning, always having a decision maker, because when we don't have a decision maker, the adversity gets extended and we're not solving for anything. We're just kicking the can down the road. I also look at cross-training. Cross-training is about how we share knowledge within groups. Some people have very specific knowledge, especially if they've been within an organization for most of their career. If they walk out that door or if they become unavailable, so does that knowledge. So how do we cross-train with our stakeholders in that department, in that organization, to make sure everyone is leveled up on knowledge as best as possible? I also look at communications, communication being the number one thing in any type of adversity. How dare we respond without knowing what we're responding to, how we're responding, why we're responding, and what our potential approach to that response would be. It all starts with communication. So those are part of Jason's blue plate specials, as well as escalation. Sometimes things go from bad to worse. How do we, level it up to leadership to make sure it's on their radar so we get appropriate support and responses?
Yeah, and from the HSEEP, the Homeland Security Exercise Evaluation Program, I should have said that earlier too. That methodology, there's 32 core capabilities. So if you're not an emergency manager watching this, you're like, what? There's 32 core capabilities. And what Prepper is here is like, either I can't cite all 32 right now. So you could even ask Prepper what capabilities might it recommend. If you're, if you're new to using HSEEP, or you're not as up to date, again, instead of having to go Go to the FEMA library, go figure out what the 32, like you could just ask it, like, what are the core capabilities that might be recommended? And it will tell you, it will give you those things. So if you're not sure, if you don't remember, ask it. That is the power of AI, is you don't have to know where to go search for things. It will act as that consultant for you. Whereas I look as like, what do you call them? Like I call them just like the regular AIs, but you called them like what do you call the AIs?
Oh, LLMs.
LLMs, but you could
Large
call them,
language models.
no, but you called them something else, like
I call them lots of things, mainly a bold-faced liar.
okay, but when you talk to a bold-faced liar, no, I look at it as like a really capable intern. Maybe
Right.
they're not as groomed or as understood, but Preppr knows these things. It is more of that consultant level. Like it is equipped to know when I ask it for a core capability, it's HC focused. You ask ChatGPT or the others, it's going to be like, what? Like you have to go back and you have to have more of a conversation to get to that.
Right. We have to give it a lot of context. I call that contextual engineering, prompt engineering. That's the dilemma with those off-the-shelf type products when we're just going into an LLM without all this pre-training and other system prompts. The scope is broad. So you need to define that scope. You need to define the context, all this prompt engineering, which part of the dilemma you get with those commercial off-the-shelf options, unlike Preppr, is one, you're going to run out of tokens. With these, if you're paying for ChatGPT out of your own pocket, let's say it's $20 a month, you only get so many tokens per day to interact with it before it taps out and says, hey, check back in with me tomorrow at this time. So as you're providing all that context, you might be overloading that system and you might have to wait till another day to then start your exercise. So something that you hope to achieve in your one work day might be a multi-day effort.
Yeah.
How frustrating.
And this could also, for the hospital folks, public health, Justin comes from public health, and this also works for joint commissions. I know I am biased to HCEP, so don't think it's only HCEP. This is just my academic bias showing here a little bit, just like you talk about COVID. So it's like we're saying these words not to limit the tool, but more just talking from our own bias. So I did want to just say, like, even joint commission stuff.
It also demonstrates the broad capabilities of what Preppr is. Here we're speaking two different languages. Again, I'm not an EM guy. I'm getting educated today, which is absolutely amazing for a Friday. So it can talk EM. You can provide context around that emergency manager type approach. You could do a continuity of government approach. You could do a business continuity approach. So public, private sector, regulated, unregulated industries. This covers everything because you provide the context, and Preppr is able to support that context, whether it's the controls like your documents, whether it's frameworks like COBIT or whatever ones used. They already left the building here. Bear with me. So there's all these things that you could do. Or hey, you work in finance. Maybe you are under NCUA, FFIEC. Who knows what acronym? Or are you overseas and you need to apply to, align to DORA and other governing standards like that, maybe in the EU. Preppr doesn't care. Preppr just wants you to supply the context so Preppr can help you help your business. So as we were chatting here, I kind of pushed things along a little bit, and you can see all my wonderful misspellings and things like that. Preppr don't care. Preppr doesn't judge.
Yet.
But you can see it's added for some context, like, hey, I want to create one module that's 15 minutes in duration. Gave me some guidance here. I'm saying, is there anything else you want to add custom instructions? Yeah, I'd like to add this is about succession planning. And then, okay, here's things like that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to align to COBIT when I'm talking about succession planning because that's my world. That's not Hale's. So he may have different type of terms in here. He may attach different standards. You may too, which if you go into that trial, you can check this all out. It's not a limited trial besides time and credits. Otherwise, you have all of these things available to you. So here I said COBIT, and then it's asking me, well, what about COBIT? Well, decision-making when under pressure and when primary decision maker is unavailable. Now, that might not be called out in COBIT. Shocker. But nonetheless, this is what I'm choosing. I want some of the controls from COBIT, but I also want to do about decision making under pressure and when that person isn't around. And it's like, oh, great. Then it summarizes it here in this upper right-hand corner. When save and continue turns this green, means you can click on it. It means now we've completed the introduction and setup and scenario description, which soon we will go into the objectives. Now, one thing that just happened, and Justin, if you're watching, so sometimes that thing pops up. Guys, this is the great thing with Preppr. As you become a customer in here, you get to help, make this platform better. Just like with any software, there's undocumented features. And the more that we have users in the Preppr platform, the more we can bubble up some of these undocumented features, and we can help squash some of these as I perceive them as bugs, or maybe they're not. Nonetheless, here we are in our scenario description, and because I had that thing popped up, it kind of threw Preppr off here a little bit. So I want to break down here. We have 3 areas. We have this blue. This is our map, where we are in this design phase or this adventure. We have this next screen with this green box. This is AI. This is where AI lives. And then over to the right, I call this the canvas. This is the output, the deliverable that we got from AI. And when we get into the scenario description is when all of a sudden this save and continue button becomes valid. So I'm going to ask it to redo. So pretty much saying, hey, Preppr, again, this is AI. We can get conversational with it. I could give it my mom's, chocolate chip cookie recipe or whatever. But here you can see I asked it to redo. So what it did is it re-kicked off the prompt, and now it's working on this scenario design. And this is the dilemma with, live action things.
Well, and while you're doing that, one of the things, just to go back on the user interface that you're seeing here, to the right, it has the get help. And what I like about this is that get help this is where you can identify, again, is it a bug or is it a feature? You can say, here's some feedback, here's a bug or a problem. You give the details. It even has a cool little screenshot feature that it'll pop up, the screen will go gray, and that's kind of like a traditional screenshot thing. You take the screenshot, it uploads it, you don't have to save it and do weird things. I know that sounds simple, but I've been in a lot of tools that even I've helped build where doing feedback is a pain and no one wants to do it. So really easy to use feedback that goes straight to the development team. And again, I can attest for how just what Jason said is this is a tool that is built to solve problems, not create them. If there's they want to vanilla ice it. If there's a problem, Justin will solve it because he wants this to work for us. And I love that about the culture of Preppr. It's what do we make to make this work, not what do we make to make a buck. So I just really appreciate that. Get help is really a nice feature there. So as you're going into the scenario description, you're planning what's going on now.
All right, so here it is, and I believe this is a self-created issue. So what I said, Justin, earlier about it's a bug, maybe it's a feature, I don't know. But so what I did when I personalized Preppr a while ago, and we had that intelligence in here, well, this intelligence is all about a major IT outage. And that is not the theme of what I'm trying to do for this exercise. So I'm confusing Preppr because Preppr is saying, hey, I see all this stuff about, cyber attack and whatnot in personalized Preppr, and it's having a hard time understanding that's not what I want. So think about order of operations as you do things. So let's say you're going to go create a specific exercise around succession planning or lack of decision makers, and you want to use that intelligence part of personalized Preppr. Well, then you go into gather intelligence, do a little, boots on the ground research to get some factual data around that. And then you can add that into personalized Preppr, or even better yet, if you choose not to do that, which is okay, delete that entry from the personalized Preppr around that threat intelligence that you got, those intelligence finding. So this doesn't go back and reference that. So I removed it. Let's see how it goes.
So you put 2 good guardrails on it.
Yeah, I created this problem. I am the cause of and solution to said problem.
No, I mean that's perfect because again, it shows you how nimble this can be. It's not some hard to set up, very deep tool that like once you set it up, no one wants to touch it again. So that's funny. All right. Once confirmed, so you just got to confirm it.
Yep, working on that, and it's pretty much again, it's hung on this thing of cyber attacks. I've been beating this thing up so much for cyber attacks, but nonetheless, I finally figured out my issue. I said, "There's no threats." So what? And around succession planning and maybe this particular small scoped exercise, there aren't any threats. The threat is somebody not making a decision. That's not necessarily something I would put in my personalized prepper. So pretty much I just told it to ignore that and we're just going forward. This is, again, a very, very, very basic exercise. But that's the great thing with Preppr. It's a Swiss Army knife. It can get as basic or as complex as you want. So here we are. It created the scenario description. Okay, chief medical officer, cancer center, awesome. I'm not going to read all of those words. A little much for a Friday, so we're just going to move on.
And just to show it real quick, there was an edit button. So if you don't like what it gave you, before you save and continue, again, it's like trust but verify. Just like you said earlier, is you can go in here and once it gives you that preview, if there are certain aspects, words, things that you don't like, you can always edit those and then save and continue, and it will process those changes.
All right. Yeah, here we are. There's that edit button where you can go through and, crash in your own words, or if you're a Grammarly person, you can see, if Grammarly can polish it a little bit, which, depending on how you can.
Now you're just showing off.
I know.
Right? That's awesome.
But, then once you have that edit, then again, if you don't click on save, never going to save. So now it's went from a save button to an edit. Now we can click on save and continue, and we now move into the objectives portion. And this is where things start getting even more fun because we have all sorts of adventures to choose. And here it is, draft objectives and guided process. So they are not the same. Draft objectives is pretty much allowing Preppr to take the wheel to a point. Again, AI isn't replacing us, it's augmenting us. So that draft objectives, it'll generate those initial objectives based on some selected capabilities, which those capabilities we talked about are some of those documents, succession planning, and AI will do, and Preppr will do what Preppr will do around that based on its system prompts to create those initial objectives, which you can change. Or if you want that guided process to really be that chef in the kitchen and tailor this to every nuance that you want to, then the guided process. Guided process takes a little bit longer. And I figure for a 15-minute tabletop, we're going to get the draft objectives version. So what I do, again, thinking about short and sweet, draft. Okay, I'm just going to put draft in here. Again, we're working with this conversationally. So it fully understands that it's going to go draft those capabilities and scenario details, so on and so forth. Would you like to emphasize any topics like decision-making, communication flow, things like that? Heck yeah, decision-making is what this one is all about. So you could put other things in there too, like, corporate affairs or something like that. You get to choose the adventure. And maybe that was a horrible adventure to choose, but I mean, I think of Coldplay concerts and executives kissing in the background and such as life, which, by the way, you can use Preppr to create that type of tabletop. Ask me how I know.
Oh, that's funny.
Right?
Wow.
You'll go research that.
That's another video. That's awesome.
So here we have the objectives, decision-making under pressure, succession planning when primary decision maker is unavailable. Sure is putting it together a lot better than I ever could have hoped to. So it gets the capability and the objective in here. We understand that. And again, we can click on edit. We can tweak things as much as we want. When we like it, we click on save. And when we're really happy with it, we can click on save and continue, which then moves us into the next part of our adventure here.
And as an allusion to the final product, right? That table that it was just in is part of the HC template document that this outputs in. So you can kind of see, again, what is the difference between traditional AI and Preppr? That's one of those things. It has that hard-coded, baked-in format that you are, as the end user, being prompted into, whether you like it or not, because that's what we want. We want consistency. You want repeatability, even if the scenario core capabilities and scenario change. You want the end user to have a consistent format that it outputs in, so you can go, again, get the lizard brain trained to the same thing every time. It's not a different feel one versus another. So anyway.
Right. And here's where we get that augmented intelligence, that human in the loop. So Preppr is just not going and just saying, hey, here's your word salad, good luck. we get to add our experience into this. So we can draft module titles based on the data that we already have in here, i.e. Preppr gets to choose, or it can guide us step by step where we get a little bit more verbose and we can put our own spin on things, i.e. corporate words, different language, things like that makes sense. Or you can, again, lean into it and say, hey, for these modules, I want this or that. Again, you get to choose the adventure. You are in control the entire time. AI is not making the decisions for you. You are. And again, in thinking about this, this is a 15-minute exercise around succession planning. I want this to be so no lift for me. I'm going to go with number one. And when I say number one, again, think about tokens and things like that. The more words we use, the more credits we might burn. So sometimes less is more. So here it gives me a choice of 1, 2, or 3.
That's awesome.
And
I'm like already like that one trick. I'm like, oh, no, like
right. And you could use the number 1, 2, or 3, or you could say draft, guide, and here's my ideas, or hold my beer.
Because every one of those, everything that you give AI is another drop in the bucket of weight it has to remember and think about.
So concise and focusing your language not only helps you, it helps Preppr. And it costs you less. Again, I want my Midwest niceties to come out. I want to say, oh, dear Preppr, please select this one. You're the best. Thanks, buddy. Do you need a beer or something? That's not going to get me anywhere. The result doesn't change by being so verbose. Less is more.
And so far as you're typing, you've had, you're an expert. It's been a week now. So, most exercises we're seeing on average are short, quick, exercises like you're talking about. I think are just approximately about 1,000 credits, if I'm recalling correctly. So, as what we're trying not to do, or what I don't want to do by accident, is give you to quote another car analogy, right? The charge anxiety, or what they talk about.
Oh,
It's like, I don't want to give you that anxiety. We're just trying to give you tips and tricks, not say like we feel that in that free trial that you're going to go and do, you're going to have plenty of credits. It's where for the people, the users that really want to get the weeds, and you're wondering, why is this taking so much more credits than I'm used to, versus being simple, say, I don't know, you pick, or 3 or 1. If you're like, what about weather? Like, I want you to create a weather scenario that has a front coming in, as you give it more of that ask, yes, your credits are going to be used more. So on average, from what we're seeing from the users, you're looking at about 1,000 credits. So I don't want to give you that charge anxiety or the credit anxiety by accident, but these are really great tips, not just for Preppr, but for almost all AI. Really, as you're experiencing it, they're all kind of wired the same way. It's what it sounds like. They want to be simple. Don't say please. Don't say that. All the things we're wired as humans to do. Computers, like, that's processing power.
Exactly. And if you want to think about that in the grand scheme of just general AI, that means we're consuming, more natural resources. We're putting potentially more pollution into the environment. It means we need to stand up yet another, nuclear power plant, or stand up another data center, and need all this compute, all these things. So being nice is awesome to people, but it doesn't necessarily serve us well when it comes to AI. There's a lot of negative outcomes because of it. And again, if we think about processing power, compute, data centers, energy, water, all this cooling, by us typing into here, some server somewhere in the world spinning up like crazy. And if we can be really smart with our language and how we use it, we can be more efficient, and we can reduce our, so to speak, carbon footprint, or our, resource consumption.
This is where you input. If we do edit this may be a long video, or maybe we edit. This is where we want the more rate. It's like, yeah, I had no idea. Like, that is, again, like, outside of Preppr, that's just good to know, because I still use these other AIs too. So it's like,
right,
that's really smart.
And if you ever really want to know the pain of AI, stand up your own AI lab, self-host it, and then beat it up and see what your energy bill looks like at the end of the month.
I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to trust you.
It's super easy. I'll show you.
Yeah.
But anyways, getting back into Preppr here. So as we were chatting, I was helping this guy moving things along. I wanted to draft the module titles for me. And then, Preppr asked me to give it some context. So I said, hey, I want you to focus on decision making when leadership isn't available. And then Preppr ignored one of the cardinal things I did under the introduction and setup scenario, which is okay. It gave me 4 modules. Awesome. Which what I love about that is I get to choose, or I can say, I don't like any of them. Try again, use this type of focus. But nonetheless, what I did is I'm like, hey, I really like number 3, critical decisions under pressure, succession, and action. So cool. I only want 1 module. That module should be number 3. Now, I could have been more concise with my language. 1 module, choose 3, or 1 module, number 3. Probably would have gotten the same type of results here. But nonetheless, Preppr responded back, certainly, hey, here it is, gave me some context. Here's the 1 module that I wanted, not all 4, which is cool. And look at this. Save and continue is green. Green means go. It means we should save and continue.
So Viola, as I like to say.
Right. So here we are. We're moving on to the module, and module 1 has some subcomponents to it: injects, questions, and a description. Now you would think, isn't that backwards? We should start with the description, questions, and then get into injects. No, not in this case, because we're building context. So we're going to start with the injects, which is that, I call it the twisting of the knife, where the question is just jabbing somebody, and then the inject is make it hurt, So.
I call it scenario or like enhancements, but we call it
I channel somebody different when I think of exercises. In the BC DR space, crisis space, you might be familiar with a person named Regina Phelps. If you have, awesome. If not, get to know her too. Hit pause, go check out Regina. So Regina is my inspiration around tabletop exercises, and one of the things that she tries to invoke, and I hold dearly, is I want to make my people cry. And if she can literally make them cry, she will. She's amazing that way. But for me, my takeaway is we need to be in that emotional mind state of adversity, because when we do these tabletops, it's under blue sky conditions. Everything's great. We all get to go home at the end of the day. No fuss, no muss if we make a bad decision. But in reality, when that adversity strikes, those decisions have consequences, have outcomes to them. And also that is very stressful on us. Think of the last time you got a speeding ticket or something like that, sweaty palms, like, your hands on the steering wheel. What am I going to do? You're in that fight or flight response. And that's the mindset I try to put my people in when we're doing tabletops, because that's the mindset we're going to be when the adversity truly strikes. So if we can make it resonate with them at the emotional level, we have a better chance of training that lizard brain to ignore that emotional state or to suppress that emotional state, so we can be in that analytical mindset, so we can make decisions, see facts clearly, and just pivot and move forward in solving this adversity. Anyways, so go check out Regina Phelps. She is my inspiration. Make people cry. That's the idea of the plunge of the knife and the twist.
It's a whole nother, I can have a whole nother conversation. Regina, if you're listening, let's have a talk on that, because I come from the opposite side of, like, don't beat people down because they won't return. Right. I've had executives say, I'm not coming back. I've stressed out too much.
Right.
Like, I've got work to do. So that's a
great call out, because it's a balance. It's know your audience. This is stakeholder and relationship management 101.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that to the board and C-suite?
Right. Exactly.
Probably not a great idea. Though, man, would that be so much fun?
Yeah, it is a balance. Yeah, you're right.
But hey, I'd like to keep my job, and I'd like to continue funding. So sometimes we have to tailor our conversations and our outcomes differently based on the audience.
Like a personal trainer, right? Like, if they're sore, they're never coming back.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you don't want to throw all the weight at them, but give them a little bit to feel good.
Want to make them sweat.
Yeah, make them sweat.
And if you don't like them, you want to make them hurt. So, hey, you got choices in life here. So nonetheless, here we are back into Preppr. We're in our injects.
So here's where we make it hurt or sweat.
Potentially. And, we can let Preppr twist the knife if we want, or we can, put prints on it ourselves. In this one, again, thinking of the KISS principle, which, if you're not familiar with the KISS principle, please go Google it, because it's something about silly. Keep it simple. Somebody. Silly. Sure. So anyways, I'm choosing number 1 here. The keep it simple, stupid is the way I remember
I'm
it.
trying to be polite. I'm just
I'm
trying
not.
to. Yeah.
I'm just going to speak in facts. This plain, concise language. There will be no misinterpretation. So here I asked Preppr to draft the initial injects. In essence, hey, Preppr, I want you to use, remember when you click on this little hammer, these settings, we got this enable intelligence gathering. We got these docs associated potentially to this. It's referencing those type of things.
Those original
Give it
docs.
context.
Yeah.
And now you can see, I can't get to the docs because, man, we'd sure trip Preppr up if we started changing up the documents halfway into an exercise design.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go all the way back to our introduction and setup, in essence, start the process over.
Let's not do that.
Speaking of that, what happens if you lose internet? What happens if I get, closed out of here? What happens when it's the end of the day and I want to go home? Okay, so here we are. We're back in the Preppr dashboard, which, by the way, you can title these however you would like. Otherwise, it auto titles. And here we can look at our completion. We're 40% complete, and we can resume. So we click on the resume button. Look where we left off. Oh, beautiful. It's like we never left. So I'm back at my desk now tomorrow and refresh. I've got my 8.5 hours in front of me, or maybe I just needed to take a break and walk away.
Or it's a different meeting, right? You can have the different stakeholders.
Or you're working on 10 exercises at once. And right now I'm going to hop back into here because I'm juggling, creating a bunch of them at the same time. That's the great thing about this is you can hop out or you can go to previous stages. You can turn off your computer, come back. Heck, if you had the access control and the permission from your organization, you could access this from home and do it for free.
Yeah, go ahead and work from home.
Yeah, work for free. That's awesome. But nonetheless, here we are in our injects. We're going to tell it to draft the initial injects here. I'm choosing number 1. So I'll use the modules focus, draft injects to guide these injects, blah, blah, blah. You have to read because it might be waiting for us to give some sort of answer here. So I'm kind of talk and sight read. So the chief just say, yes, I want to, I'll just say yes.
And usually the questions are at the end. So if you're wondering what the question is, it's at the end. So you could start at the end and see, what do I need to focus on?
Right. Good call out on that.
That's a tip I learned when I was tinkering.
So you can see that AI kicked us out some stuff here, and then over here on the right-hand side, the canvas, which will allow us to then move forward once things are in the canvas. But here's kind of the magic that Preppr does. And, if you were doing a deep coordinated exercise, maybe it's multiple agencies, multiple departments, whatever it might be. When I'm in healthcare, I think of, IT behind the black curtain and our frontline staff, trying to tie in those frontline staff to this, and that coordinated exercise is absolutely critical. But here, the reason why I'm saying all of this is it starts breaking down a timeline. And if we had other coordination too, we could call out other departments in this, other agencies in this, other stakeholders in this as we go through. And this is one of those, superpowers of Preppr that's really hard to do with roll your own exercises. This has a lot of context, those system prompts behind here that's guiding everything, that's assembling all this data in here. And which, as you can see in this free trial, we're burning some credits here. And it's all for a good purpose. So, we're looking at here, unexpected leadership absence notification. It gives us timeline, identifies participants, communication breakdown, 10 a.m. To be honest, that's probably like at 8:35 from a timeline standpoint. But you could go through here on this inject side and you could modify those timelines if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But here we get the communication breakdown, resource allocation challenge, external stakeholder pressure, all these things. Boy, I'm like reliving an instant. PTSD, which is awesome. Which then, Preppr very smartly says, please review these injects. Okay, so we're going to go over here. We're kind of reading through these. I like these injects. These are decent. I'm going to click on save and continue, which now we get into the questions. Because again, think of how this is building. It's building an exercise from how we would conduct it backwards. It makes sense, though. We're going to get those granular, fine questions handled first because then they'll help inform our broader, high stake, broader, not high stakes, but just broader questions, high level questions. And then we'll get into the description because we'll understand our injects, we'll understand our questions, which will allow us to populate a description. So there's a reason why it's doing it, as I look at it, backwards, or most likely in Preppr's way, the right way.
I was like, like, again, back in my day, I would always start with a scenario. And then I realized you usually need to know what questions you're asking, so then you can make the scenario fit the questions, which is like it's inverse of how you would just think about it initially. But no, it makes perfect sense. The last thing I did is the scenario because I needed to know what am I, to your point, what am I poking? Like I need to know what I'm poking in order to get the thing to make it poke it correctly. So yeah, so that's it seems inverse until you do it. You're like, oh, so the light comes on.
Right. It makes perfect sense. And then as we're moving more into module one here, the only module we have, it's pretty much asking for us our scope of stakeholders. Who's all going to be in this exercise? And we see this leadership team, healthcare management, IT and communication, public relations. Boy, that's a lot of people. Where the heck did it get that? Remember this personalized prepper? That's where we identified those types of people.
Yeah.
It's in there. So it can reference that. So if you have common stakeholders in here, great. Otherwise, Preppr does a really good job at determining who would be part of that type of exercise.
And from my perspective, like again, the documents I would have when I've done this, it says emergency support functions, right? Your ESFs. Do you want it by that? Do you want it incident command groups? Do you want it ops, planning, logistics, finance, whatever? So it actually will ask you those questions, which I think is really, really cool. But if you want to throw it out because you know that not everyone's going to be there, I have the attendee list, I have the RSVP list. I may want to change the group names now because it's not going to be exactly to my plan. It's to the RSVP list. And this is where you can change that.
Right. And with all of that said, thinking this is a really short, I call it a micro simulation or a micro tabletop. Am I going to have leadership, healthcare management, IT community? Oh, good Lord, no, that'll never be a 15-minute tabletop with all those people. That's the day I call in sick. But nonetheless, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to modify these groups because there's one of these groups that I want to use. And what I'm going to do is I want resource management. I want my line people. That's mainly who I work with. C-suite's awesome. I work with them a lot. I work with board level. But at the end of the day, who's the doers in the incident?
Yeah.
They're line people. We need to support them. We need to prepare them. And Preppr helps us with that. So what I'm going to do is say, hey, I'm not going to use the recommended groups, but I'm going to go with 2, modify these groups. 2. Let's see what happens. And also, you could say you could skip the groups. You don't necessarily have to have a group 2. It could be broader.
Everyone gets the same question.
It can apply to anyone. But here I'm going to tailor this. I'm going to say it's a leadership stand-up or whatnot. So what groups do I want? Well, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to resource management. I'm going to copy and paste because why not? So here I just told Preppr I wanted resource management. AI is doing its AI things using those system prompts, that context, those attached documents, that research across 80,000 some sources. And here we have, okay, thank you for specifying your all right, so I obviously am contexting this wrong. I want just the resource management. Probably shouldn't have put the in there, but like I said, English sometimes my first language.
No, it's.
But anyways, so Preppr's out doing its thing. So okay, it kicked us back here. Understood.
There we go.
Okay, and we got it. We added the right context in here. Now it's creating a ton of questions around that type of context. And you can see we're still module 1. We're in the questions portion based on where the yellow line is. And we have questions in here: unexpected leadership, absence notification, around resource management, communication breakdown. Now you see resource management parroted a lot in here, and there's a purpose for it. Because let's say we change the scope to have all of those functional groups: leadership team, healthcare management, IT and comms, public relations. Well, it's going to label them because they're nuanced questions for each group. So here, Preppr is just doing how it's trained and what its system prompt is for how it needs to format this. It's going to dump resource management because it could be resource management, healthcare management, IT and communication, or whatever words you put in there. So it's going to do this. And now we have not only the unexpected leadership absence notification, breakdown in comms, resource allocation challenge, external stakeholder pressure. Like I said, man, this is starting to feel real. So we're going to click on save and continue because that got greened for us. And now we're going to move into the description of these questions and injects of this module. And here we have what this is done over here. So high level, we're going to read. We're going to say, yep, I like the draft. And what should happen then over here in the canvas side is that should then be cemented here. We can see it starting to generate. Again, you have the edit button where you can go through and edit this. And then again, click on the green save button. You don't click on save, it does not apply. And then if you like what's in there, where you can click on save and continue, which then it starts building the master scenario events list. Now keep in mind, this is a very basic exercise. So maybe the MSEL doesn't get populated the way it is because I didn't really give Preppr enough context to create a good MSEL. On the upside is, I don't necessarily need that for this, though it is super handy. So what I'm going to do is it's going to ask us some context around here. We can include everything in the kitchen sink to make a very detailed MSEL, which I will. I'm going to select number 1. I want it to have all injects from all modules because it could be, if this is a multi-module with multiple stakeholders, having that master scenario events list really is kind of like your outline and crib sheet for orchestrating and administrating the tabletop or the exercise. So it's over here doing God's work, creating this master scenario events list. And you can see, look at all that it populated. It did a really, really, really good job overall from not a whole lot of information that I gave it.
And again, like, it's fun to hear, you're not HSheep trained. And like, so, in the jargon, we call it a measle. So hearing you spell it out, it's like, oh, like this is new to you, right? Like this is a week in. You're literally, I get really nerdy here. It's unifying across sectors a process and methodology that's been validated, vetted, and literally tested for years. And it's allowing you to talk to me and me to talk to you across sectors that we had. Like, again, I was hearing COVID the whole time. And so now we can literally create an exercise together meaningfully without having some of the translation that has to happen in these meetings. Like, you're doing this naturally and organically through the conversation with Preppr. And just doing this in Excel, which is where I would put the conversations, we just walk through it again. Like, I know we're at a long time in this chat. We're like over an hour in here, almost 2 hours now.
Right. I know time flies when you're having fun.
I actually had to Google real quick, how long can a Teams meeting be recorded? 4 hours. So that's our cap.
Life goals. We got life goals here.
So, but anywho, but just to do this copy and paste, the typing, all of this work that's in front of us, that's at least a couple of hours of just crafting this. And that's if you're good with Excel. When you copy and paste correctly, a formula goes bonkers. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to table flip, because you have your core capabilities on another tab that are supposed to populate over. This gives you all of that right there. Edit it here in this without having to worry about that. I just wanted to take a pause, and I love measles. And again, this is for tabletop. So as some of you are hearing from my side of the house, measles is for a functional or full scale. No, the SITMAN that this will populate into is really a tabletop. But that doesn't mean that you're not in a tabletop still going to be able to give those injects to say, hey, news update, flash a news update on the EOC monitor and do those. You still can do those within a tabletop. That's fine.
Right.
There is a gray area between tabletop and functional at times if you do it well enough. But anyway, I just wanted to park that real quick, because
I'm glad you said measles, because I'm thinking, okay, am I updated on all my vaccines and things like that? Because I think of measles, it means something very different to me.
Yeah.
But this is awesome. This is how we break down silos. This is how we bridge things, is through language and understanding emergency management language, as well as BCDR, crisis, your organization's language, things like that. The more we can leverage language appropriately, we get to results that much quicker, instead of worrying about misunderstandings, interpretation, language barriers, so on and so forth. Lots to consider. So as we were talking there, what I did is I looked at measles, or MSEL, and just validated that. In business continuity, that's not something I normally would have, but since getting into Preppr, I see massive value in it. And now I want that as part of all of my exercises, as my crib sheet I have in front of me as I'm administrating this thing. Game changer, data in a very simplified place. Could you do that and roll your own? Of course. Not easily. How would you create that prompt to get that type of formatting.
Mm.
There's nothing easy about that. You're going to have to create a JSON schema. You're going to need repeatability. You're going to have to, extract that data from it, get it into that same schema size. Anyways,
You already lost me. I don't even know
I know.
half of what you just said.
Right. And that's what makes Preppr awesome. You don't need that type of experience. You don't need to know all that technical prowess to execute on this. Just think, we're just about ready to cross over 2 hours here, but it wasn't 2 hours making an exercise.
No, this is just us talking and managing.
Exactly. Just think of that short amount of time that we've created this exercise, which now I get to confirm and finish. In essence, if we edit this down, we've probably spent 35 minutes creating this exercise.
Yeah.
Pretty darn cool.
Yeah,
so what we have here, now the exercise is created, it's 100%, and now we can either delete all of our hard work, don't do that, but click on download. And what download is, this is one of the deliverables that Preppr offers us. And this is
beauty.
Something very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
I'll shift that over into the screen here. And you can see I have this mind-numbing title, which if I just actually created a shorter title, which keep in mind, that is right here. If I didn't create word salad title, this would be a little bit better. But instead, here we are getting punched in the face. But here's our sit man with today's date, gives us the high level of what, the situation manual and what it does and how we're going to apply it. And then we get into our exercise overview. And keep in mind, the more data that we put into Preppr and the more context we have, the better these type of deliverables become. So we get that, again, that word salad for exercise name, the date. You may not necessarily know the date you're executing it, but you can go into Word here and you can change that and get that updated when you know that execution date. You have your scope, focus areas, capabilities, objectives. Reflect back briefly of all those questions we answered in Preppr and all those results and deliverables that it gave us that we, accepted or enhanced or denied. Well, this is the fruit of all of that labor.
Can you do me a favor and hit enable editing? Now I'm going to go a little word nerd. And then if you go to view, does it have all the, can you go to navigation pane right there in the middle center? It says right there, right where you just were, where it says ruler, center underneath view.
All right. I'm sorry. I am an idiot.
So on the top ribbon, hit navigation pane. Okay.
Right.
Word nerd. So this is all of the heading levels and what builds out your table of contents.
Yeah.
We'll nerd out on another day about Word.
So think about, all those headings and things like that. And just think of all that manual work that you would normally be doing of setting heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, so on. And look, it's got the appendices built correctly. If you wanted to, you go build a table of contents in about 10 seconds.
Yeah. No, so I just wanted to see that because I hadn't seen that, and I've seen the Sitman in general as far as like the output, but this is really from the exercise purist again. This is where the money is. This is where the rubber meets the. Can't even talk right now. It's so late. The rubber meets the road as far as like this is where everything is built from. Once you facilitate your H-sheet design process, you have the meetings, you talk, you get all that content. This is where everything has to land anyway. And this is not your end in any exercise. This is just the beginning, as they like to say, because now I have captured in a very formal process, in a very easy to talk through process from Preppr, the consultant, into my draft, my Sitman. This is the artifact. This is the thing that you're going to keep in perpetuity for your agency to live and breathe from, again, to mend what you can measure from. Put your branding on this, put your logos, your whatever. If you don't like this document format, I have grown to love it. I get it. Justin will roll his eyes at because he thinks it's the ugliest document in the world. I love this document. Maybe because the version or two before this was not this pretty, and I gave FEMA some feedback and they changed it. But anyway, if you scroll through here, you'll see everything that Jason put in here where it belongs. And I think that's what I want to impress upon everybody is Preppr doesn't know what your outputs are going to be past this point. You're going to do PowerPoints. You may do a stand-up presentation. You may do everything, but where you get the content for that is right here in this document. You're going to copy and paste the content right out of your final Word doc and put it into your PowerPoint or put it into your script or whatever it is that you're trying to create. But that all creates out of this point. It doesn't know if you're on the Google suite or if you're on the Microsoft suite, because it doesn't know those things. So that's why it outputs into this Word doc. So then you can do the world is your oyster from this point. So I just wanted to say, like, a lot of people are like, why does it go in a Word document, not other things? Because this is the artifact, this is the brain of your exercise that you just built.
Right. And if we think about organizations too, what is that primary productivity suite almost all organizations have? It's Microsoft. So from a standard standpoint, it makes perfect sense. If you wanted to make this a Google Doc, awesome. I know you know how to do that, so I'm not going to bore you with that. Also from a continuity and a private sector, where some of these public types of formatting doesn't necessarily apply or make sense. Well, the great thing is you have the ability to get rid of it. Like for most of my exercises, I don't necessarily have a sponsor, but if I do, it's typically the executive for that department. I could crash them in here. I could also give that context to Preppr too, which then it can help autoflow this. Same with participating jurisdictions and organizations. Typically in private, I'm not necessarily partnering with other jurisdictions or organizations, though it's a super smart thing to do. Where's your active shooter drill? Where's your, evacuation plans and all that? You should be working with your municipalities and your local law enforcement and fire departments to better understand that and align to their language, because guess what? They're going to own that situation. So thinking about that, you could put those things in there, or it could be other departments. Maybe you're doing cross-functional type exercises where you're, including other departments outside of your own or the one that you're doing. Same with point of contacts. The point of contact usually is me because I'm the one owning the exercise and administrating it on behalf. But hey, if you don't like it, delete it. That's why it's in Word. This is fully editable. You're not boxed in, just like any of these other things on the bottom, in footers or headers. You can modify all of this. You can brand this however you want. You could go through and tweak what the header 1, 2, and 3 colors look like, and have it automatically reflow the document. Super easy that way. So we have that. Here's our exercise objectives and capabilities. Think of all the things that we just put into Preppr to give it context, so it could help design an exercise based on our experience, intuition, and data. Then we have participant roles and responsibilities, exercise structures, exercise guidelines, all these things that where if yours are different, one, you potentially could train Preppr on to maybe embrace your organization's love language, or even better, if you can't, do it after the fact. This is so easy to do. Exercise eval, our criteria, our scenarios, key issues, questions. I mean, this is on and on and on. It just keeps going. And here's one of the challenges. Again, if you think of roll your own, how do you get into a really nicely formatted Word document right out of AI? Are you going to tell ChatGPT to give me a formatted Word document? It's not going to do it. Claude won't do it. Heck, even Gemini won't even do it. And that's a Google product. You'd think it'd create a Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets. Yeah, no, not yet. So, you're going to have to lift and shift that data into your productivity suite and format it. That takes time. We got to put lipstick on this pig. Preppr does it for you automatically.
Magically. I was like, is he saying on a
No,
and this is, and again, just you may not be familiar with, this is right out of the HSheep toolkit. This is the format that emergency management is drilled in. If you've taken any of the HSheep courses, this is what you're told to use as a starting point. Yeah, if you want to make it prettier, my documents always are a little bit nicer than the base standard, but you can see the essence that is seated in this exact template. So I think that's, again, it's unifying a standard across sectors. It's giving you a baseline to build from. And yeah, depending on how, like you said, this is a simple, quick exercise. You don't want to build a lot of different products or artifacts off of it. You've got to sit, man, go. But if you do want to want to give a script to somebody or create whatever, this is where it all comes from, the brain of the exercise. So yeah, I love that we got to this. I know you watching may have been on if you're still with us, that's awesome. Or maybe you fast forward, because I think what's really hard, and when we try to do demos, or the demos I've sat in to learn Preppr better, we didn't get to this detail, the level of detail that you were able to show today, I've learned a lot already, and I've been at least a week longer than you. So it's really important to have this as a place to come back to as you're in your free trial, as you're walking through this, you know, coming back to this video, hopefully you can see and remember some of these tips and tricks, because it's hard to get this on a demo. And we do, there is a learning library. There is spots you can go to learn about how to do these, and there's like Loom videos, but sometimes it's nice to have this audio, this dialogue that we've been able to have. So I really appreciate that you've been able to sit with us this long to talk through this and kind of unbox Preppr. In the tutorials you're showing right now, if you go there, you can see those. There's some quick getting started videos. There's no audio here. And really, what I think the biggest part that we want to impress upon you, the viewer, is as we've unboxed Preppr. It's taken a while. It is deep, it is robust, and it is more than just some AI wrapper. It has what I fell in love with this process, and what Justin has been so vehement about is unlocking the power of AI through HI, through the human intelligence. It's not just saying, "Oh, this is cool. Go whiz bang. Look what you might be able to do." It's not the might be able to do. It's what you can do because of the humans that have spent time in saying, "That's not real. That's great. That's bad. That's great." You can see this. You can test it out, and it's more than just an exercise design tool. As we mentioned, when you get your plans in the tool, you can ask it to do CPG 101 guidance related questions. You can scrub it against core capability, or excuse me, lifelines. You can do some of those things and ask Preppr. You can gather intelligence in a more meaningful way than the science fiction of most AI right now. So those are some of those features that we don't always get to really get into when we're in a demo, or that 1 hour goes way too long. Well, here we go. This is that more experiential process. If you have other questions, let us know. I have already thought about 5 or 6 other different ways we could talk about some of this stuff that I want to explore. If there, I'm really excited because again, I think we've done a real, and by we, I've done nothing. Jason's done it all. Has really done a great, again, like that's why I want to make sure you're not getting paid for this. It sounded so much like a sales pitch. I was like, man, I should know this more. But when you do the Chat GPT or Gemini or the showdown, the Preppr showdown, whatever it is, it's going to be really cool to see that and experience it. And I hope this has been a great teaser for that, because you've done such a great job at showing like this is what's different and this is not. Because even me, I'm very new to AI. I just got to where my success story for AI. This is a little off topic, but this is what sold me on AI. My house that we're currently in right now, the tax appraisal's office appraised my house at a very exorbitant amount, a very higher amount than last year. And they're like, if you want to fight, not fight this, but if you want to contest, you want to contest this, like contest it, this is how you do it all. And I was like, I'm not this smart. I don't know how to do comparisons and this, that, the other. So what sold me on AI is I talked to Claude and said, "Hey, Claude, here is my tax appraisal thing, a high amount that I do not want to be taxed on." I went to the appraisal's office, went to their GIS. I looked at similar, yet much higher homes or lower homes than mine that, this hasn't been remodeled, all these other things. And I said, "Claude, take these comparable homes, take this letter, and contest it for me." And it did it. It wrote it out. I gave it those couple of documents, and no joke, I got the tax appraisal. They went lower. They reduced my tax appraisal well over $100,000 off of my assessed value because of Claude. And I was like, okay, I believe AI, I believe. And
Right.
then, getting into this, I'm like, again, to the whole point of Preppr is when you give it the parameters, when you put human intelligence to this, holy powerful, right?
Right.
time saver. I would have not known how, like I did that. I did my contesting of my appraisal value in 30 minutes or less. That would have taken me hours to really like analyze all of those things. And it literally saved a value of my home of being taxed over $100,000. Um, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today,
But
but it sold me on
absolutely
learning
does,
this.
though. So think about that use case for AI to help you in a personal situation. And if for those out there who haven't explored AI yet or embraced it, definitely go check it out. There's a lot of potential capabilities and use cases around it. But from a prepper standpoint, AI is that enabler. It's gas on the fire, so to
Mm.
speak. It allows us to iterate quicker. It allows us to get deeper insights. And it's not that we can't do this by ourselves, but think about that design duration that you typically have with exercises, especially for very complex ones. It could be months, could be even years. Prepper has the potential to limit that amount of time. I think from like my the time I would spend in Roll My Own to create a 15-minute micro exercise might be an hour or two for a 15-minute conversation.
Mm.
Look at what we were able to achieve with Prepper, minus all the conversation, in a very short amount of time to create a very robust exercise. Now, is it the final iteration of the exercise? No, I do death by PowerPoint. So I'm going to have to create the slide deck, maybe some multimedia components, lift and shift some of the verbiage out of that Word document into the deck and things like that. But I'm over halfway there. So AI is the fuel for me to leverage my expertise, my own intelligence, my own decision making capabilities, and have that as the gas pedal for exercise design. I can floor it. I can move now as fast as I want or as slow as I want. And Prepper will meet you in all those different areas. Prepper can help draft those questions, identify stakeholders, or you could go into that more of that guided nuance things where you can add more of your experience, more of your tone to it, more of your organizational challenges that we're trying to exploit in the exercise. You can do that as well. So Prepper is that true multi-tool that will show up under all circumstances, regardless whether you're an emergency manager, business continuity practitioner, ITDR practitioner, crisis manager, communications professional. This tool isn't just for us who run towards adversity. It's for businesses
Mm.
to survive adversity.
And just save your time, right? Like it's yes, if I had all the time in the world, if I'm working on a nice piece of wood or sanding a car, yeah, I want to take my time and feel the grooves and sand it, but I'm busy. I've got a lot of work to do. I'm not getting new staff. I'm being asked to do more and more and more. Guess what I need? I need a power sander. And I'm gonna go in there. Maybe I want to hand sand it, but today I got to power sand it. I'm still gonna have to validate it, feel to make sure the grooves, I'm not over sanding or under sanding. So that power sander is saving me time. And I think that's what we need to realize. We're not trying to get away from the purity of that craftsmanship, but where we can take some time and make some time for our day-to-day tasks. Yeah, we're going to throw a power sander in here. And then at the end, just like you said, I still got to build those things. I'm going to put the power sander away. I'm going to go back and I'm going to still put that finesse on it at the end. But man, did that power sander make the time go faster so I can concentrate on other things.
Right. And with that said, that's how you pay for Prepper in your time savings.
Mm.
Time has value.
Yes.
Very much as Hal said early on when he would host his exercise, that hourly burn rate or what that cost that exercise is. What does it cost you right now to design the exercises your current way? Okay, take that measurement, understand that value. Now go stand up that free trial of Prepper and do the same thing. Now, that first time, you might not save much time because you're learning a new platform and there's some nuances to it, and that's okay. But you've got a duration on this trial. What does it look like a couple of days later after you've had a little bit more experience in this? How much time are you saving? I know how much time it's saving me, and that's more than what the platform costs. So, just in my time savings alone, I can justify that to my leadership of why we should purchase Prepper because it helps me focus on the things that are truly meaningful to the organization. Again, training, education, exercises. and allows me to focus on that more and allows me to attach my plans, that organizational language to this to create a meaningful deliverable. So think about that. Why don't you give it a try? Let us know how much time it saves you, and we'd love to have a conversation with you when you get a chance.
Yeah, thanks. I just had other flashes too of just like a little PTSD of talking to young emergency managers or interns that I had to QA QC their products. I would be like, "Where's the measle? You can't do this on like on a Google table. I need it on Excel or other thing." This helps quality control some of those younger staff within the format that you may need. Again, coming from HC, this is oh my gosh. But the QA QC time, my time as an executive or as a director level, much more higher. So just the time, maybe not in the meetings even, but in the QA QC, if you have a younger emergency manager trying to learn how to use HC better, this helps them and you not have to QA QC better. So thank you so much. Wow, this is my first time ever doing something like this. Jason is so gracious to come up here as I was floundering, not knowing how to do any of this. This is hopefully my setup gets even better and better. Really appreciate you driving up the mountain here to help me. And hopefully you've learned some things. Again, check out Pearl Snap Consulting. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. This will be posted there. Pearlsnapconsulting.com is our website. Love to schedule some time with you. If something about Preppr grabs your attention, we want to hear about it. Go to this website here in front of you, Preppr.ai. We'll get you there. You want to talk nerdy about something else, go to my website. I'd love to talk with you about other things on what we're doing. And really just appreciate Justin and the Preppr team for allowing us to just be open with the tool, unbox it, show it off, and then get you into a free trial and really just change the way you're doing business and work smarter, not harder, right? So, again, thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you on the next one, and we'll go ahead and stop the meeting and see you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Yeah, it might be 2.5 hours long, but we can slice and dice this 20 different ways.
Yeah.
Because that's the joy of these type of things. We were in a group. There's no way we were going to stop.
No.
But now we can carve this up, and you can get a content delivery. So we can do 15-minute pieces, 20-minute pieces, 30-minute pieces.
So my mic worked the whole time. I was like, hit the button. Like,
right. To me, I think this is one of the most powerful things that we can do to help Preppr, to help Justin, is more things like this to show